none of this is like a personal attack on South Carolina or Shane Beamer or the players or the staff, anything like that. It's a down year. Yeah. It happens. We talk about all the time, no matter the sport, the preseason picks. Yeah, South Carolina was picked to finish really well. It's just a guess.
Yeah.
And what people saw on paper didn't turn out to be the result this year. And that's okay.
Welcome onto the sideline, everybody. Matt Dowell and Claire Foley with you once again for another game day preview. And Claire, it's tough. I mean, it's very tense in Columbia, and I know we've said that for a couple of weeks, but it feels like the tension is building and building and building, and I think it's the most tense it's been all season long. You can feel it from the fans. You can feel it in the press room. You can kind of feel it everywhere, and I do feel like we're getting to the point where we're kind of saying the same thing over and over and over. Because frankly, we're just not really seeing any changes, as far as the on-field play for South Carolina. And this week, it's a big one. I mean, Alabama is playing really, really well. They're going to take on South Carolina. South Carolina's going to take on Alabama at 3:30 on Saturday afternoon. Bama's back in the top 5. They're confident. They're playing well. And I don't know what to say about South Carolina because I think it's just kind of the same things we've been saying. The offense is struggling. It's almost getting worse. Oklahoma was bad on Saturday. The defense, I think, looks pretty good. I think they're honestly just doing what they can, and special teams have just been okay. But, I mean, the offense is the star of the show, and it has just been horrible. It's been horrible.
And there definitely haven't been enough or big enough changes for us to feel any differently about this team. I know one thing Shane Beamer said in his press conference this week was, the offensive line didn't have any pre-snap penalties. Okay.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
there were still 6 sacks.
Yeah.
They only scored 6 points on the game. Yeah. So okay.
Yeah.
But I just don't feel there's been enough swing anywhere to show that the offense has a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm. And how do you change that in 5 days against a team that is absolutely on fire? And we'll talk about Alabama later on. We'll have a journalist from Alabama come on and talk to us about the Crimson Tide. But, Claire, this is a team that's won 6 games in a row, but 4 straight over ranked teams, which is unprecedented in the SEC. The first time a team has ever done that. 4 ranked wins in a row, most recently over Tennessee. So not only is Alabama playing well, but they're confident, and they're beating really, really good teams. And if you're South Carolina...
Teams that South Carolina lost to.
Yes, exactly. Teams that South Carolina lost to. So you just wonder, okay, again, the defense is playing well. That, can they keep that up? We'll see. But when you look at the offense, even if they're better than they have been, how do they keep up with Alabama?
Right. Yeah, I think that the defense could be at their best, and maybe they do stop Alabama in a significant way compared to some of their opponents so far this season. But what's the offense going to do to support that? I mean, coaches talk all the time about complementary football, and I think that's the biggest thing missing here is okay, the defense is succeeding, but you're not putting up points. And the thing is, defense wins national championships, but not without an offense.
Yeah, exactly.
and we're just looking at winning regular season games at this point.
And I think what's very confusing for everyone is that South Carolina's offense does have so much talent. It's not like there's no talent on this roster and they're just trying to find answers. They have so much talent. It's just like the play calling's just been bad, and it's almost like they just don't know what to do with all of the things that they have. And the red zone issues this past week against Oklahoma were kind of mind-boggling to watch, just those consecutive runs up the middle. When you have a 6'4" quarterback, who can do so much, is so dynamic, for him to not really have a shot at the end zone, there's just so much confusion going on with the offense. And I don't expect to see a change on Saturday. I would love to be pleasantly surprised, but it's just, I know on this podcast, we try and find positivity, but when it comes to the offense, there really is just nothing positive to say. It's just been that bad. They are ranked in the bottom tier of the entire country in almost every single category. You can't make positivity out of that. That just is what it is. And so we'll see. Beamer said, he is just keeping it real, and he's not happy, and he's going to fix it. That's what he's been saying to the press room. But how do you fix all of these issues so fast against an opponent that is very good?
And I think that's the biggest thing. Like he talked about this week, like, oh, they're the healthiest they've been now since Missouri. They're getting some people back, whether it's from injury or suspension. Like, okay, let's see it then.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's the biggest thing that's been missing is he says he's going to fix it and that they have the talent. Like, okay, let's see it then.
Yeah.
Like
we have to see it. We can't keep just hearing it.
Right. And I think that we can't necessarily believe or have these big expectations if there's nothing in terms of this season specifically to back it up.
Yeah. I'm really interested to see what the environment's going to be like on Saturday, because Gamecock Nation, one thing about them is they are not afraid to say what they feel.
Right.
And they will make their voices heard. We heard that clearly on Saturday against Oklahoma. There were Fire Shula chants all game long. Mm-hmm. So I do think it's going to be a pretty packed house at the beginning. But as the game progresses, if it gets ugly, what is the environment going to be like? I'm assuming there's going to be more chants. Is it going to empty out fast? How are they, or are they going to be the opposite? Are they going to try and will this team to some kind of shocking upset? What is the vibe? Because I said on this podcast many times, I think Williams-Brice Stadium is the most underrated college football environment. But just what's the approach from the fan base going to be on Saturday? Because they obviously want to win this game, and there's a big difference between 4-4 and 3-5, especially as you go into Ole Miss and Texas A&M. It doesn't get easier after this. So for me, it's what's the fan base? How are they going to react on Saturday? Because they were loud on Saturday, and they've been loud since then.
And I think that the biggest fan with probably any fan base, but especially an SEC fan base, is they want to feel heard.
Yes.
And so after their frustrations on Saturday, that would have been a golden opportunity for Beamer in the moment to say, I hear you, this is not good, we're going to fix it. And you heard some of those things, but there was also a little bit of, I don't necessarily want to say deflection, but maybe what fans would deem as all I hear is excuses. And the thing about they practice well, but fans, especially in the SEC, that sure you can say they're greedy, their expectations are too high, but they expect results.
Yeah.
And they expect competitiveness. And especially in a season where they were coming in ranked so highly, that's because of what they did. Like they were ranked highly and had these expectations because of what they did last year and because of what they're capable of. So they want to either, one, see those results or hear a legitimate reason as to why they're not achieving them and what the path is to then achieve them.
Yeah. Frankly, practicing well means nothing
Right.
if you go out on the field and you lay stinkers, especially on the offensive side of the ball. If you're only scoring 7 points a game, continuing to struggle to score touchdowns, that means nothing to fans.
Like, it's great for the mentality going in. You know that they were prepared going into the game. It's not like they just went in completely over their head. Sure, that's great. But to the fan that's mad about the loss and how they lost and how they had like all this excitement going into this season that they were going to have a potential Heisman winner in their quarterback, and to see him not even get chances is incredibly frustrating, and that's not what they want to hear in the moment.
And Lenore Sellers, for someone who doesn't show a lot of emotion, he's showing emotion on the field. You can see how frustrated he is with everything. It's been a tough season to watch on the offensive side as a whole. A couple of headlines, too, from this week. O-lineman Kason Henry, Beamer says he's probably out for the year, which is a big loss for an already struggling offensive line. But everyone else has practiced this week, so maybe we'll see a healthier O-line against Alabama. I don't know what that means, as far as the actual play of the O-line, because it's not been good all year. But the more bodies, the better. Another headline coming out of this week is the Virginia Tech job. There's been a lot of talk about Shane Beamer. Obviously his family has a major connection to Virginia Tech. If things go badly here, would there be some kind of, okay, Beamer leaves, wants to go to Virginia Tech, yada, yada, yada. Beamer in his Sunday teleconference saying that he is here for South Carolina. This is his dream job. He's committed to turning this season around. He's committed to winning at this school. So, obviously you never know what's going to happen in the college football landscape. But for now, Shane Beamer says this is the place he wants to be at. The other big one, of course, when we talk about the South Carolina offense, Claire, is Mike Shula. And I think after the firing of Lonnie Teasley a couple of weeks ago, everyone Sunday morning woke up and checked their phones and said, where's the notification? All the angry fans that we're talking about. Where is the Beamer fires Mike Shula notification? That did not happen. Shane Beamer saying he did not make a change to the coaching staff. And frankly, people were saying this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If they don't do it right after the game, it's not happening that week.
Yeah,
I mean, it's going to be an immediate action, just like what we saw with Lonnie Teasley. And I don't think Shula at this point is going to be fired in season right now, if that is the decision that will eventually be made. At this point, it's not happening this season. And I think sometimes, Claire, you have to look. I understand people who want to change at the offensive coordinator position and with play calling and stuff like that. But I think sometimes you also have to look at the big picture and say, okay, if they fire Shula, who
then
takes
what?
over? Yeah,
Right.
like then what? It's not like there's a magic, answer of, oh, this person will take over and they will immediately start scoring 45 points a game.
Right.
I don't think it's that easy. So I understand that thought process, but I also think you have to think of, if you do that, what's the next move? And I don't know if South Carolina has that next move right now.
And I think that's the biggest problem with fans that are so quick to hit the fire button.
Yeah.
Is that's not always the answer. And I feel like sometimes is rarely the answer to wanting a fast result. Like, there's a reason that you don't often see one-year coaches in any sport. Things take time. So when you have a coaching change midweek, you can't expect there to be immediate changes. And granted, like, this is the difference between the Sean Elliott stepping in and a Mike Shula thing. Sean Elliott is week one in his role, but Mike Shula has had the last several months, and even into last year when he was coaching during the bowl game. But I think some things do take time, and I think at this point, like you said, I don't think there's going to be a firing at this point, but there definitely still need to be adjustments in season.
Absolutely. And I think Shane Beamer has been very honest about he's not happy either,
Right.
and he sees what we see. And he did address that in his press conference this week for Talkin' Tuesday, when he said he understands how the fans are feeling and he's going to do everything in his power to try and turn this season around, because bowl games are still eligible. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's almost impossible with the way the offense is playing.
Yeah.
But Shane Beamer did say, that is still a goal on the season list, and he's doing everything he can to try and fix things before it gets really bad.
I mean, I'd love to say they're, grown men and don't look on social media, and hopefully they don't. I mean, I've picked up my phone a couple times this week out of habit. I'm like, nope, I'm not even gonna try. And I don't know. These guys are pros. This isn't their first rodeo. There's going to be criticism. I saw a great article, a great quote from Nick Sirianni, the head coach of the Eagles, that he told a reporter the other day after they started out the season and then they lost a couple of games, and the masses were not happy in Philadelphia. And it was kind of along those lines. If you're listening to that or you're allowing it to clutter your mind, you're not doing the things you need to do to get it right. And if any of our coaches are worried about the outside noise, they're not doing everything in their power to fix it. Because me scrolling on social media to see what people are saying about me is not helping me get it right for our players. And why why poison my brain or thoughts with that? And that's what I would encourage to the coaches. But it's a great thing too, in the sense that you want to be somewhere where people are passionate, and you want to be somewhere where people have high expectations. There were high expectations for us last year because of what we did. There were high expectations for us because we were 2 points away from being in the college football playoff, and we haven't met those expectations. And the fans should be unhappy about that, and I don't blame them. And you want to be somewhere where people are passionate and do have those expectations, and that's what we have here at Carolina. And I'm, grateful for that, and I wish those people could see our players and the way and coaches and the way they hurt and how they're working, and ultimately as a leader, it's my job to do the things we need to do to get it right, and that's what we're trying to do.
Let's take a look at the series history between South Carolina and Alabama, and I have to read this one because there was a lot of asterisks in this one when they sent it out. So let me just read the series history from our game notes from what South Carolina sent us. So Alabama holds a 14-3 lead in the all-time series between these two programs. Although, Claire, according to the NCAA, it's officially a 12-4 advantage, and here is why. The 1993 Tide win was later forfeited, while the 2005 Alabama win was later vacated per NCAA rulings. So that is why it's 14-3, but technically, I guess if you're talking about what's really recognized, it's 12-4 Alabama. But either way, Bama holds a significant lead in the series history. Carolina has been better as of late. So in the last 7 meetings, it's a 4-3 Alabama lead. So if you want to look at the recent history between these two, but when they play in Columbia, the Crimson Tide have won 4 of the 6 here, but they haven't played a ton in the last 15 years, just 3. This will just be the 3rd time in the last 15 years. So take of that what you will, but as you would imagine, Alabama owns most of the series history wins. So Claire, with that being said, tell us what's at stake.
Well, this would be South Carolina's best win in terms of ranked opponents since they beat Georgia in 2019. Alabama's coming in ranked number 4. Like you said, it would be their 4th win with an asterisk over the Crimson Tide. Their first since 2010. So you talked about how there's been kind of gaps in terms of playing, but since 2010, and still after the 250th win in the for Shane Beamer as a coach
and that
in college.
That was a big win too in 2010. Of course, that's a very, very famous win for South Carolina. And it's one of those things too, Claire. We talked about this last week with Oklahoma. Last year when they played Alabama in Tuscaloosa, that was a great game. And South Carolina had chances in that game, lost by 2. But, one of those losses we talked about, they played well, and it was just like, dang. Almost got Alabama at Bama. It's a tough place to win, but you took positives from it, and then that you kind of saw how that was really a preview of what was to come in the second half of the season. And I know Shane Beamer said they can draw upon that, but it's still kind of the same argument of, honestly, to me at this point, what happened last year does not matter at all anymore. So
I agree. And conversely, I don't think that South Carolina has had a good loss at all this year.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't think there have been necessarily things to take away from the losses. I think they've just been bad. They've played well in some of their wins, but not necessarily complete and like the total package. And so it feels like we're still waiting to see a lot of things from the South Carolina team, but at this point in the season, it's just, you're probably just not going to see them. It's probably just not who they are.
Yeah, I know. When we've said before, when people show you who they are,
believe
them. And I think 7 games in, we've seen who South Carolina is. Would we love to see them be better on offense and, make these games more competitive? Absolutely. Are we expecting it? I'm not so sure, especially with how tough the schedule that they're in right now is. But in the press room on Tuesday, I did ask Shane Beamer what he's seen from Alabama right now that's allowing them to play so well and get 4 ranked wins in a row and be back in the top 5 in the country.
What do I see? I see one, going back to the Florida State game. I didn't really watch that game because that was the day before we played Virginia Tech and we were traveling, and all I saw was the score. And you turn on that, you think, man, you hear all this narrative about Alabama and the Florida State game. You turn on the tape and it it wasn't quite the beating that perception-wise everybody across the country made it out to be. And I know Alabama expected to win that game, and we're disappointed that they didn't. But that thing was very close and could have gone either way. And then what I've seen since then, defense has had some injuries, but are affecting the quarterback, their opportunistic ability to pressure the quarterback. They got some real dudes on the edge that can rush the passer, being able to just get stops like they had against Tennessee the other night where they had the 100-yard interception return for a touchdown before the half. But then I think just the offense and the way they're operating. I mean, Ty, the quarterback, I think he's 18-1 touchdown to interception ratio. That's crazy. So he's throwing touchdowns. He's not turning the ball over. And then they're holding on to the ball. If you look at their time of possession in their last 4 games, it's like I think it's like 38 minutes, 36 minutes, 35 and 32 maybe. So they're controlling the ball, not meaning they're like ground and pound. They're just staying on the field and they're operating at a high level, and their defense isn't having to be out there long because the offense is moving the ball efficiently and protecting it. They're not turning it over, and they're moving the ball, which is a pretty good combination to have as an offense.
Every week on our Game Day preview, I like to invite a journalist from the opposition of South Carolina to come on our podcast and give us the perspective of who South Carolina is playing this week. And of course, South Carolina taking on Alabama on Saturday. And I spoke with Jeff Speegle, the sports director at WBMA in Birmingham, Alabama, our sister station down in Birmingham. And I got to chat with him about Alabama and what's clicking so well for them ahead of Saturday's game against the Gamecocks. Jeff, thank you so much for joining our show today. I know for Alabama, it's going really well at the moment. They had that opening season loss to Florida State, but since then, they have really gotten it together, and they have won 4 games in a row over ranked teams. How confident is this Bama team at the moment?
Yeah, by the way, Matt, that's never been done in the SEC. That's a first in SEC history to go through a gauntlet like that. And it's been pretty amazing to watch. The first game, I don't want to say that people like overreacted. Okay, I'll just go ahead and say it. They overreacted. Yeah, Alabama did not play well in that first game, but I think they were kind of shell shocked. I don't think they were expecting Florida State to be that good, and there was a lack of effort, on the part of a lot of guys, and they got called out for it, and they got ridiculed for it. And I think since then, they've been playing with an anger, with an edge, with an energy, with an enthusiasm. And that's the key of this 6-game, winning streak. And Ty Simpson, he struggled in that first game. He had the deer in the headlights look because guys weren't protecting him. It was just a perfect storm of adversity that they just couldn't overcome in that 60 minutes. But, when I say there was overreacting, all right, let me just tell you a little bit about what it's like to be in this state and cover this program. I'm walking through the newsroom and I'm looking at another TV station in this market, and they've got a full screen up of odds of who is going to be the next Alabama head football coach. Are you kidding me? Like after one game. Now I know, they underperformed last year in many people's eyes, but that was overreacting. That was going way too far. But this team has gotten it together. Ty Simpson is all of a sudden, leading the Heisman contenders, and he's playing well. In the 6-game winning streak, Ty Simpson has completed 70% of his throws. He's thrown 16 touchdown passes and only 1 pick. And this guy has been so accurate. The most accurate quarterback they've had there since Tua. And I mean, receivers know that when they look, the ball is going to be there. And this offense is really clicking, and the confidence is really just, at an all-time high. But I think, they're pretty wary of going into Columbia because of the game that South Carolina played against them last year. Now, I know South Carolina is kind of in a different situation than they were last year, but so they're going to be expecting to get South Carolina's best, I'm sure.
Yeah, going off of that, when you win 4 games in a row over ranked teams and then come to a place, a road atmosphere where things are not going well and you're playing an unranked team that now has a losing record, do can Bama see it as maybe a trap game when you play all these high profile games in a row, then you come to a place where you're the big favorite? Can that prove some danger in that trap game atmosphere if you're Alabama?
Well, they do, and what the guys are saying, and they respect that line of thinking. But to talk to the guys, I mean, look, I mean, South Carolina may have a chip on its shoulder, but in their opinion, Alabama's got a bigger chip on its shoulder. And it all dates back to the first week. This is a proud football program with a great tradition and a bunch of national championships, in their trophy case. So no one liked, the messaging that was going on after the first week and all the heat they were taking from fans and from the media and all that. So since then, I mean, they've approached every game like it's the Super Bowl with the same intensity. So I would expect Alabama to do, nothing less than, playing its best game of the year to date. And that's what Kalen DeBoer said yesterday at his news conference. He said, look, um, we haven't seen Bama's best yet. And so they're looking for that best game and trying to peak at the right time at the end of the year. But, I see them going out there and giving it max effort and totally respecting the opponent.
I know you said that obviously Ty Simpson is playing really well at the moment, but when you look at just what is working so well in these wins, is it everything? What is it that's working so well for the Crimson Tide right now?
Well, I think it's everything. I mean, I think they're getting, they came in with the number one wide receiver group in the nation, on paper. And I think that group is delivered. The offensive line, again, took some heat after that first game, but they're starting to gel. For the longest time, they were rotating guys, in and out there, which, critics would say, well, you can't do that with the offensive line. You got to have a consistent, 5-man group there. But, Ryan Grubb has made it work. And that's another thing, too. Everyone had high hopes when Ryan Grubb came in as offensive coordinator because Ryan and Kalen worked so well together at Washington, Fresno State. Ryan Grubb tried the NFL, didn't work out too well for him. But there were high hopes when he came in and reunited with Kalen. And that has really just started to just gel. I mean, that relationship and Ryan Grubb's relationship with Ty Simpson. And here's another thing. Ty Simpson has just taken hold of this offense and made it, his own. And the Monday after the Missouri win, they beat Missouri, undefeated, ranked team. So what does Simpson do at the offensive team meeting on Monday? Well, he rips into them. He rips into his guys and says, look, man, we had the ball for 38 minutes and all we could do is score 27 points. What this is not good, So Caden Proctor said afterwards, he said, yeah, he just ripped into us. And Caden said, best leader I've ever been around. And so that's the kind of quarterback you have, running this offense. And the leadership here on this football team is stronger than it's been in a while.
And that's cool that they even kind of let you guys know that. Sometimes they don't always, they don't always tell you those behind the scenes moments, but that's a very interesting insight and shows you how much Ty wants to win at the moment. Is there anything this season that maybe Alabama isn't doing that well that's still frustrating them out on the field? Has there been a theme that maybe it's like, oh, this still isn't clicking the way that they want to? And if so, what is that?
Well, every week they get gashed on a big run play. In the Vanderbilt game, it was Cedric Alexander going for 68 yards. In the Tennessee game, everybody talked about the 99-yard pick six that Xavier Brown had that basically turned that game around, against Tennessee. So they go up 23-7. Well, what does Alabama do coming out of the locker room into the second half? They give up a 44-yard touchdown run to Tennessee. All of a sudden, it's a 9-point game and Tennessee's got some momentum going. So that's a concern, if you're looking for things, I don't want to say, nitpicking because it is a concern, but every game it seems there's a big run play, and they certainly want to, tidy that up.
Hmm. Every week, I like to ask the journalists that I have on, what is the matchup within the matchup that they are looking forward to? Every week, it's actually almost been the same thing, which is interesting. So I'm going to ask you the same question and see what your answer is. When you look at Alabama versus South Carolina, what's the matchup within the matchup that you are most interested in?
Well, this is really going to sound odd, but I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it's Alabama matched up against themselves.
Hmm.
I mean, how do they handle how do they handle this historically unprecedented level of success in the league? Because the guys hear the stats. They hear that no other SEC team has ever done what they've done. Well, now here's an opportunity. You're going on the road, and it's going to be crazy. They're playing that, what is it, sandstorm at the beginning of the game or whatever, and the crowd's going to be into it because you have a number 4 team in the country coming into their place. Well, how do they handle that now? Now they're getting into the quote unquote softer part of their schedule, right? So the natural tendency is to have a letdown. And so can they avoid that? So to me, that's the thing. Many years, starting with Nick Saban back in '07, the thing is, it's all about us. It's not so much about our opponent. It's all about us. How do we handle our business? So to me, that's the biggest matchup. The matchup of Alabama against this mental state that maybe they're in, that they don't want to go in feeling like they're better than what they are. And can they go out and execute and play just as well as they did in the previous 4 games and take care of business?
Yeah, and for South Carolina, now they're really fighting for a bowl game, it feels like, and there's a big difference between 3-5 and 4-4, especially when you look at then they have to go to Ole Miss and Texas A&M after this. So this is a pivotal moment in their season, and there's been a lot going on. So we'll see if South Carolina can try and make this competitive, try and upset, or if Bama, is really just going to continue to lay down the hammer in a way that they have been recently and playing really well. Jeff, I want to thank you so much for coming on our show. Is there anything else that you want to add about Alabama that maybe we didn't touch on that you feel is important going into Saturday?
Well, I would say this about Alabama, and when you look at them play, the first drive is always, the message sender. First drive, man, they come out of the gate and they run like an 11 play, 12 play, 13 play, 75-yard drive that just makes a statement right from the get-go. They've done that all year long. Even in the Florida State game, they did that. And so if they're on point, that's the way they start a game. And what South Carolina's got to do is mess that up. They got to come up with a big turnover. And they got to get off to a good start. And this, you've covered enough football to know that that's a big key. And when you're on the road, the key for the visiting team is to have a big drive like that and just kind of shut the fans up, for a little while. So that'll be the thing to watch right out of the gate with Alabama.
Jeff, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. I really appreciate you giving us the Alabama perspective. I always like to end by kind of plugging your guys' social media. How can people, if they want to follow Alabama and what you guys are doing, how can they do so?
Sure. I mean, all of us, are on social media. The other people in the office are more active than I am, but Jamie Hale, Johnny Condon are very active on social media. I'm at Speegs 3340, and it's a fun time to be covering college football, and so great to be with you, Matt.
I want to thank Jeff for coming on our podcast. They do great work down there in Birmingham. So if you guys are Alabama fans or want to keep up with what the Crimson Tide are doing, their whole team does a spectacular job with Alabama. And again, thanks, Jeff, for coming on our show. All right, Claire, it's time for our final thoughts and predictions. And I think every week we have genuinely tried to give South Carolina the benefit of the doubt. We haven't always picked South Carolina, but we tried to be like, all right, let's see what they can do, against Missouri, against Oklahoma. Like, we kind of like, oh, it's a toss-up. I don't feel that way this week.
Yeah.
I feel as down on South Carolina this week as I have all season long. Because I've tried to, be like, all right, Gamecocks are going to get it together. They're going to show us something this week. I'm kind of now on the train of they're going to have to prove it to me again.
Right.
And I think Saturday's game is going to be ugly, quite frankly. I don't think South Carolina is going to get it together. Would I love to be proved wrong? Absolutely. But I think it's going to be ugly on Saturday because I think South Carolina is playing that poorly on offense, and I think Alabama is playing that well at the moment on all sides of the ball. So I'm picking Alabama to win 42-7, and I think it's going to be bad.
Yeah. I think even if you just look at it from a surface level, if you just take schedule and results, it feels pretty obvious to me that Alabama's going to win. You look at the way Alabama's been trending versus the way that South Carolina's been trending. You look at the scores, how much offense Alabama has put forward, where South Carolina has fallen short.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel likely to me at all that South Carolina would be able to win in this way, but would love to be proven wrong. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that none of this is like a personal attack on South Carolina or Shane Beamer or the players or the staff, anything like that. It's a down year.
Yeah.
It happens. We talk about all the time, no matter the sport, the preseason picks. Yeah, South Carolina was picked to finish really well. It's just a guess.
Yeah.
And what people saw on paper didn't turn out to be the result this year. And that's okay. It happens. South Carolina did well last year. Things didn't go their way this year for whatever reason. Every other team got better just as South Carolina tried to do the same. It's just not their year.
Yeah.
There can still be things that South Carolina learns and grows from this. And I think that can really be their only goal for the rest of this year, is to see what they can do with the pieces they have and learn from the tough experiences. But in terms of this week, yeah, maybe there will be things they learn from it and grow from it. But I think in terms of the actual score outcome, I think Alabama's going to blow them away.
Yeah, agreed. And I think, too, when you just look at South Carolina's offense and how much they're struggling to just score, even if they scored 21 on Saturday, which...
That would be a win to me.
With the way the season's going, that would be a great offensive performance. I don't think that would be enough.
I would love to see a good loss from this South Carolina team.
But I just don't know if... I don't think they have the offensive prowess right now to compete with someone like Alabama. When you have Ty Simpson, who is playing so well, they have all these receivers. They just have so many options, and they're playing so well right now. So even if South Carolina gets in the 20s, I don't think that that's going to be enough to beat Bama, who I think is playing really, really well at the moment. So
they just haven't hit their groove yet. And at this point, it's like, it's kind of too late. Like, what, gonna pull out an interesting analogy here for it. It kind of feels like, a zipper that like gets off track, and then like every once in a while it's like, oh, it's starting good. Oh, you got to start it back from the beginning. And it just like isn't a smooth glide. And I feel like that's the comparison of where Alabama's at. They're grooving their good zipper right now. Yeah. South Carolina's just kind of just kind of getting stuck.
So
we'd love to maybe put a little WD-40 on it. Just have the grooves right in the right place and just zip right up.
Yeah.
Let's see it.
We'll see what happens. But it's a tough time right now to be a Gamecock fan. Nobody likes losing. Nobody likes all of the tension and the negativity. But that's just kind of where things are at the moment. And you got to call it what it is, So I don't know if anyone's expecting South Carolina to beat Bama. Maybe they use that to their advantage, that they are going to be the underdogs. I don't see it happening, but hey.
I just want both teams to have fun.
Just have fun. And again, I also think we just want to see improvement.
Right.
Like, more than anything, more than the wins or the losses, I think everyone just wants to see South Carolina's offense do something and to play well and to see Lenora shine. It feels like everyone's just waiting.
Yeah.
And now we're in Game 7. when's it going to happen? So I think that's just kind of the case. But you guys, it's tough to be positive. We try and find, both sides of the coin in these situations. I'll continue to say that the defense is playing well, and I think that they have looked really great the past couple of weeks. It's just that they don't have a counterpart to help them out. So they can only do so much. But South Carolina and Alabama kick off at 3:30 on Saturday. I am actually, when we talk about the episodes to come, I'm actually going to a wedding this weekend in Auburn, ironically. So there's a lot of SEC connections. So hey, don't hate me. My friend's the one that scheduled the wedding. He's the one that wanted to get married this weekend. So Claire and Jared are going to be covering the game for you guys on Saturday, and they will have your instant reaction episode from South Carolina and Alabama. And we should also say, Claire, we got a big time guest coming on our podcast. The great Alshon Jeffrey is going to join me in studio. I know, right? I'm excited. I haven't met Alshon before, so he's going to come on the podcast. We're going to talk his Gamecock memories, of course, his Super Bowl winning time with the Eagles and all of that. So we are filming that later this week.
Get the vibes up for that.
Get the vibes up. Yeah, that'll be a fun conversation. So I'm going to talk to Alshon. He'll be here later this week, and we will release that episode next Tuesday. So I'm excited to talk to Alshon Jeffrey and pick his brains, and maybe he'll have some advice on how you navigate a season like this if you are South Carolina. So a couple of big episodes to look forward to, and then in a couple of weeks, about a week and a half, it's basketball season, so our podcast will have a little bit of everything for you guys as we move forward and both football and basketball start to collide. We're going to do our best to cover everything as best as we can here on the podcast. But
it's going to start looking around here like that the Always Sunny thing of like the board and Charlie Day and like all the crossing lines. So the Gamecocks. Yeah. That's going to be us.
Football, women's basketball, men's basketball, they're all colliding. So yeah, it's going to be fun. But hopefully this weekend, if you guys are going to the game, watching the game, hopefully it's a better experience than we are anticipating. But that's why you gotta strap up the cleats and put on the pads and everything and get ready. Because if you're South Carolina, you just gotta go play the game and see what happens. But we will see what happens on Saturday at 3:30. As always, make sure you guys leave your comments on YouTube if that's where you guys watch our podcast. We love knowing what you guys are thinking. Give us your predictions. Give us your thoughts on the situation with South Carolina right now. We love reading the comments and getting the fans' opinions on what is going on. As always, make sure you guys like and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you guys listen to your podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon Music. She's Claire Foley. I'm Matt Dowell. Jared and Claire will have your instant reaction episode right after on Sunday morning here on South Carolina Sideline.